Initially, John Tate appears to be the leader of the group, exercising control through threats of physical violence, explaining that the word dead is banned, and if anyone says it, I'm going to have to, bite their face. He's talking to Lou and Danny in Act 1, Scene 3 there, and this seems to be an effective way to lead the two, as the stage directions inform us they say nothing, but it's not an approach which will work with everyone. Things begin to crumble when Richard, Kathy and Brian arrive. Tate extends the same threat to the new arrivals, but Richard is not intimidated by his threats of violence. "You shouldn't threaten me, John." There follows a brief power struggle between Richard and Tate before Phil slowly emerges as leader. Phil first speaks in Act 1, Scene 3, immediately taking charge. "Kathy, Danny, Mark, you go to Adam's house. You wait until his mum's out. You break in." The use of imperatives shows us that Phil has taken control. He tells the others to go, wait, break in, get in, find, buy, take, tell, keep up, enter, make your way, meet, find, walk, drop, let, tear. When Phil comes up with his plan, he does so fluently, and this contrasts the broken and hesitant dialogue of John Tate, who says things like, "It's a bit serious, but let's not. Come on. Let's not overplay the. And this is all the more notable considering Phil sat in complete silence in the previous scene, but that silence, in and of itself, is worthy of analysis. What do Phil's silences tell us about leadership and power? Well, it's worth looking here at the definition of power as the ability to control or direct others. In the early scenes, Phil controls Leah through his silence. He asserts his power over her by refusing to engage in conversation, which leaves Leah desperate for his attention, continually asking him questions such as, "What are you thinking? Is it me? What good things?" Phil seems to be aware of the fact that the best way to assert power over Leah is to remain silent. With the group, he's aware the best way to assert his power is to come up with a plan and decisively direct others. As John Tate mentions, Phil is clearly an intelligent character. His direction "don't touch the jumper" shows an understanding of criminal investigative procedure. The fact that he's able to so quickly come up with a plan to turn suspicion about Adam's disappearance away from the teenagers, a plan that works as intended, also shows his intelligence. In Act 2, Phil's behaviour becomes more overtly sinister. He tells Brian to go to the police and identify the postman they're holding as a suspect. When Brian refuses, Phil threatens him. "We'll take you up the grill now. We'll get you by the arms, by the legs. We'll throw rocks at you until you drop. You'll land on Adam's corpse and you'll rot together." Note how Phil controls Brian through threats of violence. Brian appears to be the weakest member of the group, seen through the fact that he was the one chosen to go to the head teacher in tears. The suggestion is that he was the most likely to be believed. Phil knows the best way to control Brian is through threats. Phil is often silent, but Kelly's use of stage directions tells the audience important things about the characters. In Act 3, Scene 3, Phil tells Lou to go home. Lou stands there, unsure, and the stage directions tell us that Phil goes to her, places his hand on her shoulder, smiles, warm, reassuring. This seems out of character for Phil, but is clearly another example of his intelligent use of manipulation. Whilst threats of violence work with Brian, Phil acts in the opposite way with Lou. The result, however, is the same. He gets her to do what he wants. When Leah leaves Phil, Phil realises he no longer has power to control her and leaves the group. We learn in the final scene that Kathy takes charge and is now running things. Richard explains that she's insane, she cut her first year's finger off. Kathy then has filled the void left by Phil and taken the position of leader, seemingly by force. This should not come as a surprise to the audience. Kathy's behaviour from the start of the play was troubling. Like her response to the news of Adam's death, it's quite exciting. In Act 2, Kathy's excited at the prospect of being interviewed and the chance to get on the telly. She enthuses, "They might even give me money for it." It is Kathy who deliberately chose someone matching the made-up description to plant the DNA on. I thought, show initiative. Kathy seems to delight in the idea of framing an innocent man for a crime he did not commit. In Act 3, Kathy explains, "I used violence to get Adam out of the hedge," explaining, "I threatened to gouge one of his eyes out." She threatens Brian, "If you don't shut up, you'll be dead." When Phil chooses her to kill Adam for real, she's happy to do so. Kathy seems to have learned from John Tate and Phil that she can use violence and threats to get people to do what she wants. In my interview with Dennis Kelly, he said this: "It's really tempting to look at our leaders and think that they know what they're doing. As I was growing up, I might have complained about our leaders, but I always kind of thought somewhere they know what they're doing. I don't really think that now. And I don't mean that as an accusation. I think it's really easy to kind of go, oh, politicians are all in it for themselves. I don't think they know what they're doing any more than I do, or any more than you do. We're all just idiots." And this is really helpful because it shows us that there is no clear message about leadership in the play. There's no one character who leads well. Why? Because in the words of Dennis Kelly, we're all just idiots. If you found this video useful, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.